and welcome. You're listening to the Just Love Them podcast. I'm your host, Cherie Best. This is a place where we share our experiences, our insights, and our wisdom to help you find peace with the loved ones you have who have stepped away from their faith. This is part two today of our interview with Misha Baca. Misha's story is so good that we just decided it needed to be told in two parts. So, part one, which was last episode, was all the background story about her daughter Asia and her experience raising this beautiful daughter. Misha's a retired elementary school teacher and has four children. This is part two of her story. This is the part of the story that really, really touched me when I heard it the first time. I knew Asia when she was growing up. You just never know what's really going on in someone's life. I'm just going to turn the time back over to Misha at this point and let her continue with her story.
Thank you, Cherie. So when we ended last time, I had introduced so many disorders that Asia had been diagnosed with and that she had exhibited that kind of caused her life to be harder to live than my life has been. So I can compare to my life because I know my life. And so she had decided to turn to drugs for help. At the very end, we did talk about the murder of her sister's boyfriend. And that is a whole huge story. And I know that's a huge thing to throw in the middle of this, but the reason I bring it in is because it truly was the catalyst for Asia to start using more dangerous drugs. She had smoked pot, she had used alcohol, she had tried mushrooms a little bit. She had just experimented with very, what I would say, not dangerous, but it's definitely illegal. She shouldn't be doing. I would never say it's okay, but not the dangerous drugs that she began as soon as Sydney's boyfriend was murdered. She became acquainted with a boy, and the two of them just decided that this is what they're going to do. And they were able to get drugs very easily. They had lots of people that around, and right now it seems very easy to get drugs. And that was probably the most shocking thing to me is that Asia could use her phone and meet somebody right outside of our neighborhood, like the street, and just someone to drive by, drop them off, and she could go pick them up. And it was just such an easy thing for her to do. She didn't use a lot at our house. She mostly used with this boy wherever they were at. Because she was 18 and graduated, she decided that she could, and she would sleep over at his house and she would stay there. And the dad was unaware of what was going on. Sometimes he would catch them and get mad. But for the most part, she just had this place and these people that she could roam around with. And so it got very scary very fast. There are many instances. So for about a year, she used freely. She had to be Narcan. So Narcan is the naloxone, the brand name that you would use to stop opiates from getting into your brain. So when you take opiates, it's can like fentanyl, it can slow your breathing down, and then that stops your heart. So in a matter of minutes, you can pass away unless someone gives you Narcan. Probably 8, 10 times during this year, she was administered Narcan by this boy that she was hanging out with. Then she was in a rollover car accident and she walked away with no injuries. And so she had many instances where she should have died. Honestly, I would say she should have died, but she was able to walk away. And for the life of me, knowing Asia's life and knowing what she struggled with, and she had mentioned to me numerous times that she was okay with dying. In fact, she felt like it would free her from this life. And of course, I would tell her, it would ruin our lives. We couldn't handle that. Please, this is not something I want to hear you talking about. But for her, it was definitely, she could see that it was a reprieve. So because we taught her the gospel, she had that understanding that when you die, you go to a good place. But there
Hmm.
were times when she would come to me because she knew she was sinning and she understood that. And she would ask me, Mom, am I going to go to hell? And
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and so, yeah, that's a poignant question and something to be thinking about. So I knew she was worried about her salvation, which was music to my ears because, of course, she had, I don't like the church. I hate everything about the church. I'm never going to church. But here she was worried about her salvation. So that understanding was there. And that I think is key. So teach your children, and as long as you taught them when they were young, it will definitely stay with them. So she was worried about her salvation, understanding that she was playing with death. She knew that. My answer to her would always be, Asia, is really hard to go to hell. You have to try really hard to go to hell. I said, you don't just end up there. And you don't end up there because the Lord has given us his atonement. With his atonement, everybody can come back from what they're doing. And it's a choice. And I would tell her, this is my belief. I don't think that there's a scripture that says these words exactly, but I tell her, when you get to heaven, you will be given a choice. Will you follow me or will you not follow me? And all you have to do is choose to follow him. And through his grace of his atonement, you can be forgiven and you can be saved. And so that was something that she held on to. And I'm grateful that we had those conversations. On September 26th, 2024, I went into her room to wake her up and let her know that I was leaving to take her sister to basketball practice. And she was obviously not doing well. She had overdosed, and I had left my phone upstairs, and I did had my Narcan upstairs. So I had to run upstairs and grab my phone and call 911. And I had to tell her sister that I was calling 911. She had to take care of the dog. So I grabbed the Narcan, grabbed my phone, started, answering the questions, got back down to Asia. I gave her the Narcan. There's no response. And she had let out a little bit of air when I moved her, and her body felt warm to me. So I couldn't tell for sure if she was dead or alive. And I even said aloud, I said, Asia, I don't know if you're dead or alive. And I just wanted, some help from her. And then the paramedics got there within 2 minutes. So I gave the Narcan. They walked in the door and they started doing everything that they could to save her. And within 30 minutes, they called her death. What I understand now is she probably had died about 3 hours before that. The last alive thing she did was text this boy, we'll call him her boyfriend, at 10:37, I think, was the last text that she sent him. And I didn't walk into a room until 1:52. So she probably passed away many hours before I found her. When we got back her death certificate, they said that her time of death was 1:55 because that's when the paramedics got there and assessed her and that she had no life in her. But they pronounced her dead at 2:30 to us. So it was devastating. And I did not think I could ever come back from this. Her being gone that night, I couldn't tell my family. I couldn't tell anyone. We had neighbors in our cul-de-sac wanting to know, and people texting me and asking me, what's going on? Can we help you? Because our cul-de-sac was filled with cop cars and ambulance paramedics, and I couldn't say the words out loud. It was really hard to just, I knew this could happen. I understood it could happen, but that it had now happened is just a whole nother level. And that night, just waves of emotion would come over me. It was just like I was at the ocean and a wave would come and hit me, and I would just break down and sob. And then it'd recede, and then it'd just come and hit me again. And I just kept thinking, I'm never going to be okay. There is never anything in my world that could fix this. So we were able to finally tell family members, and that was heartbreaking to have to say those words. And they would come over and visit with us, and then neighbors and people took such great care of us. You just don't realize how much it matters to have someone drop off a note, drop off some flowers, bring some food. It was just so helpful to us to know not only that people cared, but also that our needs are being met, just
Yeah.
some food and some tissues, whatever it was that we needed, it was given to us. And so make sure that you are taking care of your neighbors. That second commandment, I just feel so much more respect towards it and how it can really help people. The next day, I wanted to, that night, well, actually, Thursday night before I went to bed, I just prayed to my Father in heaven that I wanted to have a dream of her. And I wanted to know where she was now. And I wanted to know if she was happier. And so I just please see her where she is now. And when I woke up Friday morning, I had not had the dream. And so I wept because I was just
Oh,
so sad because I just wanted that. And I knew he could give it to me. But Friday morning, I took her dog downstairs out the back door. When her dog came in the morning from going to the bathroom, she ran straight to Asia's door and just would not go away from it. She was clawing at it and yelping and just jumping and I didn't know she's not in there. I'm not going into her room. There's no way I'm going into her room, not for a long time. But the dog would not stop. And I tried to grab her and pull, and she'd wiggle away. And so I was fine. Okay, we'll go in there and you'll see she's not here. So as soon as I opened the door, just her smell hit me, and that just brought everything right back. And I just started sobbing, and her room was a disaster because the cops and the paramedics had to take any drug paraphernalia with them. So they had to go through everything. They tossed her bed, her drawers, everything. And so I just sat down on the edge of her tossed bed, and I just all of a sudden felt her. And I don't feel people who've passed away. I've had lots of family members pass away, and I've never once felt them, not even my father. And I could feel her, and I knew it was her. And also I just stopped crying. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to push my grief away. I'm going to focus on this because this is huge. This is what I've asked for. So I focused on her, and I closed my eyes, and I just said aloud, Asia, how are you doing? And I could feel what she was feeling. There were no words spoken. She didn't tell me anything, but I knew how she was feeling, and her spirit filled the entire room. And she was feeling this sense of wonderment and awe of where she was. And she was excited. And she almost could tell me how amazing it was. It was better than she ever dreamed it could be. And then I could feel her joy and her pure happiness, a level of happiness I know she never felt here on this earth. And so I had gotten my witness that my daughter was so much happier where she is. And that gave me just a sense of peace that, okay, I can go through this as a mom knowing that she is happier. And having felt that from her, I think stayed with me more than having seen her. And so I knew the Lord knew what He was doing, and I needed to feel her with me. On Tuesday, after they had to do an autopsy on her. So after the medical examiner did the autopsy, I was able to go and see her. I had asked for a few extra visits from the mortuary. I took my mom with me. I asked her if she'd go, and she was willing to go with me. I said, I just need to go see her. Paul was not in any place to go and see her. I didn't want to ask any of my other children to go with me. So my mom was willing to go with me. And when we got there, she was in this plastic like bodysuit, and her hands and feet were wrapped up, and her hair was soaking wet, and she just didn't look like herself. And I thought I was composed. I thought I was ready for it. But as I saw her, I just started to break down. And I walked over to her body, and I just kind of laid prostrate on it. And I just started to sob. And all that grief came back. And even though I'd had that witness that she was happier, the grief was there. And my mom came over, and she rubbed my back, and she just said, Misha, go ahead. Tell her how you're feeling. And so I did. I just sobbed and cried and told her how this is not okay. This isn't okay. I'm never going to be able to be okay with this. And this isn't okay, Asia. I need you here. This is going to be so hard. And then within a minute of me crying out for her, I could feel the grief in my chest start to leave. And I stood up, and I just could feel almost like this black ball was gathered, and then it was leaving my body. And it was shocking. And at first I was like, wait, don't take that because I've earned that. I'm the mom.
I get
That's
that.
my
I
grief.
totally get that. Yep.
I get to grieve my daughter because I miss her. But as it was leaving, all of a sudden all of that was gone. And then I could very distinctly again feel Asia tell me, knock it off, mom. Of course, she would say that. That's enough. And she said, no more crying. Remember, I'm happy. I know it was the Lord's atonement that took that grief from me, but she was right there to remind me I don't get to cry about her. I get to be happy for her. And that's all she wants from me. From that point on, I have not been able to cry because my daughter's gone. I don't feel sorrow. I don't feel sadness. My heart has been completely healed. And I've had friends tell me, oh, it's going to ebb and flow. It'll come and go. And I'm like, no, my heart was healed. And a few weeks later, I read my patriarchal blessing, and it told me that I'd be given the gift of healing and that I'd be raised up even so miraculously and healed through this gift. And
Wow.
that's exactly what happened. I was raised up off of her. And I always thought I'd be in my deathbed, with my kids around me. They think I'm going to die. Like, oh. Nope, I'm not back. I couldn't imagine what this would look like. And this is exactly what that blessing was given to me for this
Wow.
moment. So then that gives me more peace because the Lord knew this was going to happen. And He gave me this ability to heal, knowing my daughter was going to be taken from me. I just feel like there is always a plan. The Lord knows all of our choices, He knows what we're going to do. He can prepare us for whatever comes. After we buried Asia, I realized that we could take her to the temple in 30 days. If you have a close family member that you can take them within 30 days. Now, if it's a distant relative, you still have to wait the year. But if they're, yeah, you can take them within 30 days. So I got really excited. My son works at the temple on Saturdays. And so we found that the date that was, 30 days after that we could go on a Saturday. And then I had to take her for the initiatory before that. So we had this like after 30 days of her dying, but before we go to do her endowment, had to take her to the initiatories. And we have so many temples around us, but it was busy. And the only appointment I could find was on Thursday, October 31st, Halloween, at Mount Tiburon's Temple. I'm not kidding you. There is no appointments anywhere else within, 20 minutes of us driving around. And I find out that my dear friend was going to be doing that session at the Mount Tiburon's Temple. She's only in the initiatories from 10 to 11 on Halloween.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
she was there with me when we took Asia's name through. And when we took her through the initiatory, her spirit filled the entire booth. And all the women who were in there were sobbing, and they didn't know why they were sobbing until they found out it was my daughter. And then it made sense to them. And as she was pronounced clean and as her sins were forgiven, you could know and feel that it really was happening right then. And she was so excited. And I think that in my understanding, I kept thinking that that would happen at the day of judgment. But when we take them through the temple, it happens then. And so that was huge. And my friend told me afterwards, she said, I have said those words so many times, and it has never felt like that before. Or has it ever been so poignant that the person was actually being forgiven?
It's just so incredible. What you're saying is just so mind-blowing for me because I mean, I think we're raised with truth, yes, but also our own mortal false beliefs come into that. The idea that someone could have all these problems and do all these things, and then 30 days after they die, they can literally be clean. Literally. That is just so mind-boggling to me and just reminds me that God really does have a plan. He really knows us. He really knows our heart. He really knows what's going to happen. And he gives us so much grace for what our choices and what's going on with us that we don't have to be as I was raised and as I think I believed and probably raised my children to a great degree, just this boom, boom, boom. You've got to toe the line. You can't make mistakes. And what have you forgotten to repent of? And, just that rigidity is just blown completely out of the water by what you're sharing. And the Spirit just witnesses to me the truth of what you're saying. And it just is so hopeful.
And that's what I get from it is that nobody is beyond the reaching, loving arms of our Savior. At any point in time in their life, if they've died in all of their sins, which I can tell you, my daughter died in all of her sins, they are not beyond his redeeming value. Like, why would we think it stops when we die? That you can't be redeemed. You can only be redeemed here. Why would we think that? But we did, and I did too. That was my belief as well. But understanding where she's at and that she can be redeemed and that I believe she is redeemed just is amazing and just gives me so much hope for everybody. So I don't feel that sadness for people. I can now see their life as a journey of experiences, not mistakes, not bad, just experiences. And if the jaws of hell shall gape the mouth right after thee, it is for your
Yeah.
experiences, it's for your good. Then we took Asia to the endowment session. I just have to say this. My son was officiating the session and he saw her walk in
Oh, wow.
and he said, Mom, right before the session started, she just walked right past this woman and sat down and she was dressed in white and she was there. And it was just so special knowing that she physically, spiritually, physically, is kind of how I was there. And then I would feel her spirit and then I wouldn't feel her spirit. And my son was feeling the same things. And so we talked about it after, and she was there for the things she needed to be there for. But then we realized that she was checking on Sydney and Kylie, who were in the waiting room. And Sydney said that she felt Asia the whole time, almost the whole time that she was in the temple. And so I love that during this temple experience that she was able to attend to her sisters, but then also go and take care of the things that she needed to accept her endowment. So there is just so much going on after someone passes away, and we just think that they're just sitting there not doing anything, but they have work to do, and they have a lot of things going on that will lead us into the book that I wrote. As soon as I walked out of the temple that day, I took my mom to lunch and we just kind of sat and talked about what we experienced. And I kept getting this really strong prompting. I needed to write Asia's story. And I kept thinking, no, I don't think so. No, I don't want to do that. That sounds really hard. I don't feel qualified. And so I just kind of dismissed it and it kept staying with me. It kept staying with me. So after I dropped my mom off, I just kind of said to her before she got out of the car, I said, Mom, I think the Lord wants me to write Asia's story. And she immediately, I think you should. I think it could help so many people. So I continued to think about it. That Saturday happened to be Fast Sunday the next day. And so I started my fast, and that's exactly what I prayed for. I said, Hey, Heavenly Father, if you want me to do this thing, I need my husband's support. I need to know what to write. Like the spirit and Asia need to be with me telling me what to write. I need to know how to write a book. I need to know how to get a publisher, how to get an editor, all those things. I don't know the first thing about that. And the last thing is, I know my mom supported me and I wanted Paul's support, but I wanted one more witness beyond my family who believed I could do this. I just needed that. That was just my insecurity. I'm like, someone outside of my family needs to say, you can do this. Within 3 days, all those things happened.
Wow.
And so the Wednesday after, I started writing her book and I wrote it in 7 days,
You wrote the entire book in 7 days?
the entire book. And I could feel Asia with me the whole time. Every minute of every day, she was with me and she was bringing up memories and she was telling me what to write. And so I started on page one and I wrote to the end of the book. And that's not how you write a book either.
Uh-uh.
And so she just knew like where we needed to start. And so I'd go write for 2 hours. The Lord said, Okay, you have a 2 hour block of go and write. So that whatever Asia had been telling me, I just go and type it up. And I'd finish that chapter and I'd go do whatever I needed to do, around the house. And then the next chapter would be coming to my mind, and Asia would be telling me things, and oh, remember this, remember, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So I go and write it. Well, after I'm done, after 7 days, I start, having friends read it and things like that. So that was very helpful. But then the people who are in the book, I had to read the parts that they were in to get their permission. And they
Mhm.
would always tell me that was exactly what happened. That was so correct. I can't believe that you were able to write it. And I said, it wasn't me, it was Asia. So the title of the book is called Mom, It's Going to Be Okay. A few weeks before Asia passed away, I told her that I felt like she was going to die. And I told her I didn't think I could come back from it. She and I just had this really intense conversation. And at the end of it, of me telling her, I'm not going to be able to come back from this. This is too much. Make a different choice. You can't do this to our family. These are all things I'm pretty much yelling and screaming at her and crying and sobbing about. And she just looks at me with such confidence. And she said, Mom, it's going to be okay. And very, just like that, very flat, very just, is, not a big deal. And I couldn't believe that she would say those words to me. And I'm telling her, what? What's going to be okay? You're 20. You don't know what's going to be okay. And after everything, it is okay. Totally okay with where my daughter is. And so taking her through the temple, my friend who was in there with me with initiatory, she believes that Asia's on a mission. And then I wrote the book, and I feel that this book is actually Asia's mission because she has had the mental disorders and she has had the drug abuse and the addiction. I haven't. I can't help someone with mental issues. I don't have them. And I've never been addicted to drugs or anything like that. So I can't help them, but Asia can. All of these experiences were for her good. So now she can help other people who read the book or hear her story. And that for me is Amazing. I
That
support
is.
her on a mission, knowing
Yes.
that she can touch people.
Our ways are not God's ways. That's just what comes to my mind when I hear that. Like, we think we know what the plan is, but we have no idea what the plan is.
And we think that we have to be okay with the plan the whole time.
Right.
And sometimes we're not. We're like, no, I can't do this. I'm never coming back from this. And the Lord's like, just wait.
So, how
So,
can people get a hold of this book?
so you can go to mishabaca.com, and then on there, there's an ebook, the ebook, the Audible, or the physical book.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And I'm going to put all that information in the show notes so that people
Okay,
can find it.
sounds good. That's my daughter's story. That's all the miracles that have happened and how much the Lord loves us. I mean, He's going to help us through every single one of our trials, and He's going to be there, letting us know that it's okay, and He's got us. And if we believe Him, if we allow Him in, if He allow us to, I mean, I had to allow Him to take my grief because I could have stopped it. I could have said, "Nope, I want that grief. I want to carry that around with me," but I chose not to, and He took it from me. I think that my relationship with my Father in heaven is just so much more in depth and just a bigger understanding of what He can do in this world and what our Savior can do for us. Things I never thought were possible are possible. Honestly, like we say, there's no limits. I think we sometimes just give limits, like, oh, you can't help with this, or, well, this is just something I have to deal with. We can turn everything over to Him, everything, and He can take everything from us, and we can live more joyfully and more happily. And that is what we get to choose to do. Throughout my children's childhood, there were very poignant stories and things that came to me in different ways and different times. And I feel it was like the Lord was saying, "Okay, this is the next set of instructions I need to give you." So if you are struggling with a child or an adult's child, I would like to say that too, because it can still happen. There are different things that I've learned to help me feel joy, even though my daughter's life was such a struggle for her. She was doing things that I worried about constantly. She was definitely doing dangerous things later in her life. I just want to share these gems, I would call them, that help me be happy and be joyful, even in the midst of these terrible, horrible things that I had no control over. So the first one we've already talked about is agency, is that this is God's gift to everyone. And it is not our job to take anyone's agency.
And if anyone who's listening is like, wait, we didn't talk about agency, you need to go back and listen to part one, which is the last episode. That's where we talked about all of this. So just a little reminder about that if you missed episode one.
Yes, thank you. So as I raise my children, my whole focus was I don't give them agency. It's God given, and I am not going to take it from them. So I gave them as many options and choices. And Asia, she got to choose what she did, and I gave her that agency. Perspective. Oh, this is huge. When you are looking at any problem or anything, you only have your perspective. And to be able to see through someone else's perspective is really difficult. How I can describe this is my house, I've lived in this house for 8 years. It faces Mount Timpanogos. And I love this mountain. It is gorgeous, it is majestic, and it is so close to me. And I look at it all the time. I love this mountain. I would tell you I know Mount Timpanogos, but I have a dear friend who is an ultra marathoner, and she has actually run Temp many
Wow.
times. And she's run up and down Temp so many times. Her perspective of Mount Timpanogos is completely different than mine. I am limited to my perspective, and she has her perspective. And all it is our experiences with Mount Timpanogos. I have never once wanted to climb Mount Timpanogos. I am not a hiker. That does not entice me even in the least, but I love the mountain, and I do have a perspective of the mountain. So just remember that no matter where you are and whatever you're doing and whatever problem you're engaging in, your perspective, you're limited. You don't understand what someone else is experiencing or has experienced or knows about this. So just remember, it's all about perspective. I was listening to the radio on the way to work when my kids were really little, and they used to have a therapist come on. And this one time, this therapist came on, and parents would call in and ask questions, and I just loved it. Just give these little gems. And one of the things that he said that I took just hold of, like, okay, yes, I want to do that, was wait to see what your child does when they fall down or when they fail. And lots of times we want to go scoop them up. We want to save them. We want to help them. We want to tell them what to do. It's okay. I got you. He said, just wait and let them figure out what they need because you will develop independent problem solvers, kids who will self-assess what they need and then let them come to you. If they're bleeding, they can come to you and say, Mom, I just fell down and got cut. I need a Band-Aid. But they assess themselves. If we take that from them, we're telling them they're not capable of handling their own problems.
Wow.
And that was poignant for me. I'm like, I will do that. I started doing that for my children. And then something else that really has kind of just evolved is I have started to understand that our feelings aren't always truth. And the way that I've understood this is I can be in the situation, and let's say my daughter's death. I was in a point on Thursday that I thought I could never come back from this. Today, that is absolutely not true. And that's because my feelings at that time were so overwhelming that I understood the level of grief that I was feeling. But as I gained more information about where my daughter is and what she's doing, now I have this joy for her. But it's still the same situation. She is still gone. She has still died. But my feelings are completely different for her and in this situation. So yes, our feelings are valuable. They help us understand what we're experiencing, but they're not always truth. So, more information can completely change your feelings. So, allow your feelings to be there, but don't hold on to them thinking that that has to be the truth. Because as you gain more information, talk to people or take it to the Lord, you can gain a whole different level of understanding of what's going on.
I agree with you. And the Lord can, He's the only one that has all truth. And sometimes He can change our perspective from what we thought it was. Like you, what happened to you?
Exactly. That perspective and the truth and our feelings all can change in an instant just by gaining more information. The next thing that I heard on the radio was this mom called and she was hilarious. She's like, I can't get my first grader to do their homework. And she was so frustrated and so upset. And the therapist just said, so? And she was like, what? No, she needs to do her homework and I can't get her to do it. He's like, why do you care? And all these things, I was like, what? He's being so rude to her. And I could understand where the mom was coming from. Yeah, you have to make your kid do their homework. And he's like, it's their homework. It's not your homework. And it just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, you're right. I've already completed first grade. This isn't my homework. This is their homework. And so it just opened up my eyes to natural consequences. And he's like, what will happen if they don't do their homework? Well, they're not going to learn. He's like, okay, that's not the end of the world. Well, then they'll get in trouble with their teacher. He's like, exactly. And then they will have to deal with that. Oh, and so I started thinking about that. I'm like, you're right. If we allow kids to make choices we don't agree with, there will be a consequence eventually that will teach them the lesson they need to learn. Now, obviously, we can help our children along the way. We don't have to allow them make every wrong choice. We can guide them, we can give them advice. I would suggest you do that. But ultimately, they get to make the choice. And when they do make that choice, let them have the natural consequences. Don't stop the consequence from happening. Don't save them from it. Allow it to happen. And that was huge for me and really spoke to the idea of agency.
I love that. And I think that when we do try and jump in and stop it, it's almost always because of fear, our fears.
Yeah, our fears for our
Yeah.
child, but we
Right?
want them to learn, and we
Yeah.
would stop them from learning if we go with that.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is, I don't know if it's good or bad. I've heard this story many times, and it's a Chinese fairy tale, fable, whatever you want to call it. But there is this farmer, and he had a horse, and the horse ran away. And all the villagers came over, and they found out the man's horse ran away, and they said, "Oh, that's terrible fortune. We're so sorry for you." And we're so sorry. That's so bad. He said, "Maybe." And then the next day, this horse came back with seven wild horses. So now he had eight horses, and the villagers came over. So that's such good fortune. We're so happy for you. And he said, maybe. And then the next day, his son was out riding one of the horses trying to break it, and he fell off and broke his leg. And all the villagers were like, oh, that's such a misfortune. And the farmer said, maybe. And then after that, the army came to enlist men to go to war. But his son had a broken leg, so they didn't enlist him. And so again, all of the villagers came and said, that is such a good fortune for you. We're so happy for you. And he said, maybe. And I just love that. because we sometimes believe that we know the outcome, and maybe the outcome is good, and maybe the outcome is bad. So just waiting and seeing. I just kind of treat life now like a movie. I just can't wait to see what happens next.
I think that's beautiful perspective.
And just trusting in the Lord, knowing that He's going to give us experiences that we need to go through, and that it's not going to be good or bad. It's for our good, though. Those
Yeah.
experiences are.
Yeah. It's for our experience.
And so then the next one is stay on your turf. I think that this is probably the hardest one, especially with children, because we want to believe that we can intervene in our child's life and control their life again so that we don't feel fear or sadness or these emotions we don't want to feel for our children. And if you stay on your turf, that the understanding for that is that you have no control over anybody else. You're not in control of them. You can't make them do anything. You can't make them not do anything. It is beyond your control. And that's the truth. It really is. Like you can yell and scream and fight and someone can still make the choice that you don't want them to make.
Hmm.
But
And
if
then
you
you're going to have a damaged relationship, and they're still going to make the
exactly
choice they want to make.
Exactly. So if you stay on your turf, all you understand is that you are in control of your reactions to what everything is happening around you. So what people are doing, what's happening in your life, because I'm not in control of my life. I could lose my job. I could get sick tomorrow. I could get in a car accident. I'm not in control of my life, but I am only in control of my reactions to what happens in my life. And that is huge. I feel that is really, and it saves you from so much turmoil if you allow your children to have their choices and suffer their consequences, you get to be free from that. But what happens is we get entangled with our feelings and we tie our feelings to our children. And then we are happy when our children are happy, and we are sad when our children are sad. And that shouldn't be the case. I
No.
have my life. And I told this to Asia many times. I said, Asia, you're making choices that will affect you. And I want you to understand it won't affect my life. I'm not going to be addicted. I'm not going to go through withdrawals. I'm not going to experience the fear and all the anxieties that the drugs are going to cause for you. I'm actually free from that. But I do feel for you. I'm sorry that you're going to have to go through those. But that is your choice. And being able to separate your feelings and knowing, like, I hated that she was going through this, but I didn't tie my feelings to what she was doing. And I've heard so many parents tell me that they are so sad because their child's not going on mission, or they're so happy because their child's going on mission. And I would say, how about you just be happy with your life? And whatever your child does, love them, because that's all you can do is love them. But don't be happy because they did something, and don't be sad because they did something, but just love them. And so during Asia's drug run, she knew we loved her, and she could come home at any time. Anytime she came home, it was love, 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 love. We love you, Asia. We're so happy you came home. You chose us. Take a bath, take a shower. Here's a meal. Can we wash some clothes for you? We just loved her because she was alive and she had chosen us and come home. Even though she wasn't in a good state of mind, she was obviously on something. She was not doing well. She was exposing herself to dangerous things, but we just loved her. And that helped her know that no matter what she did, she was always going to be loved. And she knew she was making choices that we did not agree with.
Yeah. I think that is an incredible insight.
It helped me because I couldn't, if I were so angry and upset with her, I would have been angry and upset in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel peace.
Yeah.
And
Because you're
so
going to stay in
knowing,
your lane.
yep, stay on my turf. So
Stay on
that's
your
the thing
turf.
is stay on your turf and let them experience their life, and all the consequences are theirs. The next thing is like this is their football game. It's kind of along the lines of stay on your turf, is we get to watch our children's football game. We can't go out there and take a pass. We can't go out there and run the ball in for them. We can't tackle somebody. We can't even tell them what call to do. All we can do is decide if we show up, if we cheer for them, if we boo them. I mean, think about all the choices you have. If we heckle them, I mean, these are things that we get to choose as we watch our child's football game. Anytime we were watching Asia's football game, we were trying to cheer and encourage as much as we could. And Asia, we love you. Oh, you fell down. Oh, you didn't score. Oh, you lost 10 yards. We love you, Asia. You can still do this, stick in there. And so those are your choices as a parent.
That
And
is
this,
a mind-blowing analogy, by the way.
thank you.
Really, it
Thanks.
really is
Uh,
such good perspective with that analogy.
Oh, thank you. The last thing I want to talk about goes back to my daughter's Sydney's boyfriend's murder. When he was murdered, I struggled for months because I couldn't get past the grief that my daughter was feeling. I would never say, oh, I should not have felt grief for her. I loved her so much and could see her grieving, but I couldn't see how she was going to get out of it. I was limiting my daughter. I was making mistakes in this scenario. So I wasn't staying on my turf and I wasn't, just watching their football game. I was really struggling with her ability to come back from this because she was 16. They'd been together for almost a year. She had told me that she wanted to marry him. He had told his mom he wanted to marry her. And I just felt like this whole life that she had was gone, was taken from her. And it wasn't until my husband had a dream that he was told in this dream that I was putting my 30-year marriage on what Sydney lost. And she hadn't lost a 30-year marriage. She had been with this boy for 12 months. So for me to put that much, that was my perspective. And it was a wrong perspective
Hmm.
because I knew what I knew about my marriage and how important it was. And I felt like she had lost all of that, but she hadn't. I use this analogy with when my dad passed away. I was 3 years old. I have three memories of my father. If I talk to someone who's lost their father when they're 18, our perspectives are completely different because I don't know what it's like to have a dad.
Yeah.
So I didn't miss out on anything. But someone who loses their father at 18 can look at me and say, oh, you've missed so much. You've missed out. But I'm like, I never experienced that. So my daughter never experienced what I've experienced. And so her loss wasn't as great as I thought it was. And then I listened to this podcast with Mira Sorvino. So this was after the movie Sound of Freedom came out. And she's an advocate for sex trafficking. And she was over in Europe helping with a lot of the world leaders and religious leaders coming together. This was like in 2004, where they are trying to create the law that sex trafficking is a crime against humanity. And she was helping to get this going. And so when she was over there, she ran into a group of people who had been saving these kids, and she wanted to meet some of these kids. She's like, I need to meet some of these survivors. And she met this one girl. She was 16 years old and she had a scar on her cheek. And there was this little child behind her, just kind of hanging on to her. And as she talked with this girl explained to her how she was abducted and kind of what happened to her. And she had been raped, according to this girl's count, 64,000 times. Whether that's an accurate account or not, it doesn't matter. That's this girl's perspective. And she was impregnated twice. And once they made her abort the baby, and the second time they allowed her to keep her baby. And this was a little child hanging onto her legs. And one day she upset the person who was in charge of her, and he burned her on her face with a branding iron, and then he burned her baby in the same space.
Oh,
So they had matching scars. And when Mira Sorvino walked away from this girl, she thought, she is too broken. She has been through too much. I don't see how she can ever come back from this. Well, a few years later, she goes back and this law has been enacted and she's going for this reading of the law into the world, and she runs into this girl again and she's doing great. And she's married. She has another child. She's going to school and she's here because she's going to read this law in Spanish to all of the leaders. And she thought, how dare I rob this girl of the ability to be resilient and come back from this? How dare I decide that she can't come back from this because I think she's too broken? And everybody is resilient. And I was not giving my daughter that ability because I thought this was too hard for her to come back from. Limiting our beliefs about what our children can do, they are resilient and they can go through really hard things and they can come back from it. So, whatever your child is experiencing or going through, they can be resilient, come back from it, and the Lord's redeeming, loving, reaching arms can also redeem them. So, there is nothing for us to fear. We just need to trust in the Lord.
I think you've said everything. That is exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you so much, Misha, for sharing all of your heart with us and all of your thoughts and your great wisdom. I appreciate you being here with me today. And for my listeners, Just know that there's so much support here for you. You are not alone. God knows everything, and you can trust Him. You have this podcast that also is here to help you, support you, help you learn what you need to learn. We seek to bring you the best stories, the best people, and the best information. You also have access to the private Just Love Them Facebook group, where you can link arms and share in a safe space with others who have been there too. You can also message me on Facebook or sign up for a free mini session. In addition, I would love to ask you for some support. If you haven't rated and reviewed this podcast, if you haven't liked and commented, please do so. Please know that God loves you. Join me again next time for another episode of Just Love Them.